The stars had been quiet for 300 years. Admiral Una remembered the day Earth burned. She was young then, barely old enough to wear the uniform of the Vethrani Empire. She stood on the observation deck of her ship and watched through the great windows as 12,000 warships surrounded the blue planet called Earth. She remembered thinking how beautiful it looked from space. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown lands, a jewel floating in the darkness. Then the order came, and the jewel became fire. The Vethrani High Command had decided that humanity was too dangerous to live. The humans were young, yes. They had only just discovered how to travel between stars. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were weak. But the High Command saw something in them that frightened the old generals and admirals. They saw hunger. They saw ambition. They saw a species that adapted too quickly, learned too fast, and never seemed to stop pushing forward. Better to end them now, the High Command said. Before they become a threat, we cannot stop. So 12,000 ships fired. For 72 hours, they poured destruction onto Earth. The cities became craters. The oceans boiled. The sky turned black with ash and smoke. 7 billion humans died in those 72 hours. Men and women, children and elders, artists and farmers, scientists and teachers, all of them gone. The Galactic Concord watched it happen. The Concord was the great alliance of species that ruled the galaxy. The Vethrani were the strongest, but there were others. The Korath, tall beings with 4 arms and skin like stone. The Moradi, insect creatures who thought as one mind. The Tesserans, peaceful traders who built the great stations where all species met. A dozen other races, each with their own worlds and fleets. None of them stopped the Vethrani. Some were afraid. Some were happy. Some simply did not care. Humanity was small and weak and far away. Why risk war with the Vethrani Empire for such a young species? So Earth burned, and the galaxy moved on. Admiral Una was old now. Her scales, once bright green, had faded to gray. Her eyes, once sharp and clear, had grown tired. She had risen through the ranks of the Vethrani military, becoming one of the highest admirals in the fleet. But she never forgot that day. Some nights, she still dreamed of blue oceans turning to steam. Today, she sat in the great assembly hall of the Galactic Concord. The hall was built on a station orbiting Tessar, a neutral world where all species could meet in peace. The ceiling rose high above, and the walls were lined with screens showing the flags and symbols of every member species. Representatives from across the galaxy filled the seats, each delegation in their proper place. Una was not listening to the speaker. The Korath were asking for more patrol ships near the outer rim. Something about unidentified vessels. Pirates, probably. Or smugglers. There were always unidentified vessels somewhere. It meant nothing. She was thinking about retirement. About returning to her homeworld and living out her remaining years in quiet. She had served the Empire for 300 years. Surely that was enough. Then the lights flickered. Una looked up. The screens on the walls went dark, one by one. The speaker stopped talking. A murmur ran through the assembly hall as delegates looked around in confusion. Then the screens came back on. But they did not show flags and symbols anymore. They showed a circle. A simple blue circle on a white background. Una felt something cold move through her chest. She knew that symbol. Every Vethrani officer knew that symbol, though it had not been seen in 300 years. It was the old emblem of Earth, the planet that no longer existed. A voice spoke. It came from every speaker in the hall. It was calm and clear, speaking perfect galactic common, the language all species used to communicate. This is Fleet Admiral Park Da-yun of the United Human Remnant. The hall erupted. Vethrani diplomats shouted in disbelief. Moradi clicked their jaws in confusion. Korath warriors reached for weapons they were not allowed to carry in the assembly. Tesseron delegates looked at each other with wide eyes. But the voice continued, as calm as before. 300 years ago, the Vethrani Empire tried to destroy our species. They burned our homeworld. They killed 7 billion of our people. They believed they had ended humanity forever. Yuna could not move, could not speak, could only listen. They were wrong. The screens changed again. Now they showed ships. Human ships. Dozens of them, arranged in formation against the backdrop of stars. They were sleek and angular, painted dark gray with blue markings. They looked nothing like the primitive vessels humanity had built 300 years ago. These were warships. Real warships. We survived, the voice continued. We hid. We built. We grew strong. And now we have returned. The image on the screens shifted to show a man. He was middle-aged, with gray at his temples and lines on his face. He wore a uniform of dark blue, simple but elegant. His eyes were dark and steady. "I am Admiral Park Do-hyun," he said, "and I speak for the United Human Remnant. We are the children and grandchildren of those who escaped the burning of Earth. We have lived in the shadows of your galaxy for 3 centuries. We have watched you. We have learned from you. And we have waited." He paused. His eyes seemed to look directly at Yuna, though she knew that was impossible. "We do not come seeking revenge. We come seeking recognition. We come to take our place among the stars that were denied to us. We come to remind the galaxy that humanity is not so easy to kill." Another pause. "Longer this time. You will hear from us again soon. Until then, know this. We remember everything. Every ship that fired on Earth. Every species that watched and did nothing. Every voice that called for our extinction." His expression did not change, but something in his voice grew harder. "We remember. And we are still here." The screens went dark. For a long moment, no one in the assembly hall moved. No one spoke. The silence was complete. Then Yuna's communicator began to scream. Alerts flooded in from across Concord space. Human vessels appearing at 17 different locations. Not attacking, not fleeing, simply existing, watching, waiting. The Vethrani ambassador was shouting something about mobilizing the fleet. The Korath representative was demanding answers. The Moradi were clicking in a language no translator could follow. But Yuna sat still. She was thinking about a blue planet that once floated in the darkness of space. A beautiful planet, full of life and noise and chaos. A planet they had burned because they were afraid of what its people might become. Now she knew. They had been right to be afraid. But they had been fools to think fire could stop such a species. Fire only made some things stronger. It burned away the weak and left only the hard, bright core. And that core had been burning in the darkness for 300 years, waiting for this moment. Humanity had returned, and Admiral Yuna, who had watched Earth die, would now watch the galaxy learn what that meant. The bridge of the UHR homecoming was quiet. Admiral Park Do-hyun stood at the center, his hands clasped behind his back. Through the great windows before him, he could see the stars stretching out forever. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was in chaos. His message had reached every corner of Concord space. Right now, billions of beings were learning that humanity still existed. He allowed himself a small smile. Just a small one. "Admiral." Lieutenant Commander Yoonji looked up from her console. She was young, only 32, with sharp eyes and quick hands. She had been born on the fleet, like all humans of her generation. She had never seen Earth except in recordings and photographs. But she carried Earth in her heart, as every human did. The Vethrani are mobilizing. Their border fleets are moving toward our positions. How many ships? Early reports say at least 500. More are gathering. Do-hyun nodded slowly. Let them come. Behind him, footsteps approached. Captain Hyeri, commander of the homecoming, stepped up beside him. She was a tall woman with gray-streaked black hair and a face that rarely showed emotion. She had commanded warships for 20 years, serving under 3 different admirals. She trusted Do-hyun completely, but even she had questions. "Sir, are you certain about this approach?" she asked quietly. "We have the firepower to strike first. Our weapons are beyond anything they have seen. We could cripple their fleet before they even reach us." Do-hyun turned to look at her. His eyes were not angry. They were tired. The kind of tired that came from carrying a heavy weight for a very long time. "To what end?" he asked. "To burn their worlds the way they burned ours? To become the monsters they always said we were?" He shook his head slowly. "No, that is not why we survived. That is not why our grandparents built these ships in secret. That is not why we waited 300 years. Then why, sir?" Do-hyun looked back at the stars. "To prove them wrong. To show the galaxy that humanity is more than they feared. Not just strong, but wise. Not just survivors, but builders. Not just angry, but patient." He paused. "We will defend ourselves if we must. But we will not fire first. We will not become what they accused us of being." Hyeri was silent for a moment. Then she nodded. "Understood, Admiral." Far below the bridge, in the deep sections of the homecoming, a young man named Taiwu sat surrounded by screens and data tablets. He was the ship's historian, one of the most important positions in the entire fleet. His job was to record everything. Every moment. Every decision. Every word spoken and action taken. For 300 years, humans had kept their history alive. When Earth burned, they lost almost everything. Cities, libraries, museums, archives, all reduced to ash. But the survivors carried what they could in their minds and their hearts. Stories passed down from parent to child. Songs sung in the darkness of hidden ships. Paintings recreated from memory. Books rewritten word by those who had memorized them. Taiwu was the latest in a long line of historians who had preserved this sacred trust. On his screens, he could see recordings of Admiral Do-hyun's broadcast to the galaxy. In his tablets, he kept copies of documents stretching back to the founding of the remnant. He was writing now, adding his own words to the great record. "Today, the galaxy learned we are alive," he wrote. "Today, Fleet Admiral Park Do-hyun spoke for all of us. He did not threaten. He did not rage. He simply stated the truth. We survived. We are here. We remember." He paused, thinking carefully about his next words. "I wonder what the Vethrani feel right now. Fear, probably. They thought they had ended us, and now they learned their greatest crime was also their greatest failure. But I also wonder if any of them feel shame. If any of them, in the quiet of their own hearts, know that what they did was wrong." He shook his head and continued writing. "It does not matter. We cannot control what they feel. We can only control what we do. And what we do is survive, adapt, grow strong. And then, when the time is right, step out of the shadows and take our place in the light." On another deck of the homecoming, Chief Engineer Minho was running final checks on the ship's power systems. He was a big man with thick hands and a calm voice. He had spent his entire life learning how human technology worked, from the smallest circuit to the largest reactor. Their technology was their greatest advantage. When the survivors fled Earth, they took with them the brightest scientists and engineers humanity had produced. For 300 years, those scientists and their descendants had worked in secret. They studied alien technology captured from passing ships. They experimented with theories the Concorde had dismissed as impossible. They built and tested and failed and built again. The result was a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Minho ran his hand along the wall of the engine room. The metal was warm beneath his fingers. "You beautiful thing," he murmured. "Show them what we can do." Back on the bridge, Admiral Do-hyun received a new report. A diplomatic message from the Tesseran government requesting a meeting. The Tesserans were the neutral traders, the ones who had built the great stations where all species gathered. They had not participated in the burning of Earth, but they had not opposed it either. They had simply watched and said nothing. "What should we tell them?" Yoonji asked. Do-hyun considered. "Tell them we accept. We will send a delegation to Tessar Station within the week." "Sir, is that wise?" "It could be a trap." "It could be. But we will never build peace by hiding." He turned to face his bridge crew. "We spent 300 years in the shadows. We are done hiding. From this day forward, humanity walks in the open. Whatever comes, we face it together." The crew straightened at his words. They were young, most of them. Born in space, raised on stories of a blue planet they had never seen. But they carried their ancestors' strength in their blood. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. In the medical bay, Dr. Jisoo prepared her staff for the possibility of battle. In the fighter bays, pilots checked their ships one final time. In the mess halls, crew members shared meals and quiet words of encouragement. The homecoming was not alone. 60 ships of the human fleet held position around her, each one crewed by men and women who had grown up knowing this day would come. They were the united human remnant, the survivors, the builders, the ones who refused to disappear. Admiral Do-hyun stood at his window and watched the stars. 300 years, he said quietly, speaking to no one but himself. "My great-grandfather was just a boy when they fled Earth. He told my grandfather stories about blue skies and green trees. My grandfather told those stories to my father, and my father told them to me." He closed his eyes for a moment. "I never saw those blue skies. I never touched those green trees. But I carry them in my heart, as every human does. And now we will show the galaxy why they should never have tried to take them from us." He opened his eyes. Not through war, not through revenge, but through being something they never expected. Undeniable, unbreakable, unafraid. The stars continued their silent watch, as they had for billions of years. But something had changed in the darkness between them. Something new had emerged from the shadows. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Concorde was breaking apart. On Tessara Station, diplomats shouted at each other across the great assembly hall. The Vethrani demanded immediate military action against the human fleet. The Korath argued for caution. The Marathi clicked and buzzed in their strange hive language, speaking only to each other. The Tesserans tried to calm everyone down, but no one was listening. The human broadcast had changed everything. For 300 years, the galaxy had operated under a simple belief: humanity was dead. The Vethrani had killed them all, and that was the end of it. Some species thought this was good. Some thought it was sad. Most did not think about it at all. Humanity was history. A footnote. A warning about what happened to species that grew too ambitious. Now that footnote was alive and armed. The Vethrani ambassador, a large male named Krath, slammed his clawed fist on the podium. "They must be destroyed. Every one of them. We cannot allow these vermin to threaten the peace of the Concorde." "Peace?" The Korath representative, Brenthuk, rose to his full height. He was twice as tall as any Vethrani, with 4 powerful arms and eyes like polished stone. You speak of peace? You burned their world. You killed their children. And now you call them vermin for daring to survive? They are a threat. They have always been a threat. They are survivors of a genocide that you committed. And now you are afraid because they are stronger than you expected. Brenthic's voice was cold. That is not their failing. It is yours. In the shadows of the station, far from the shouting diplomats, 3 figures met in a small private room. They had arrived separately, using hidden passages and false identities. If anyone knew about this meeting, there would be consequences for all of them. The first was Chithra, a queen of the Marathi. She was smaller than most of her kind, with delicate wings and eyes that glittered like black diamonds. Unlike most Marathi, she could think independently of the hive mind. This made her valuable. It also made her dangerous. The second was Brenthik himself, the Korath representative who had just spoken against the Vathrani in the assembly. He had slipped away as soon as the session ended, leaving his aides to make excuses for his absence. The third was Salix. He was Vathrani, but he had not served the Empire in a long time. 300 years ago, he had been a young officer who questioned the order to destroy Earth. For his questions, he had been punished. His scales bore the scars of that punishment, white lines crisscrossing his green skin. He had spent the centuries since then in exile, watching his people and waiting for something to change. Now something had changed. The humans reached out to me, Chithra said. Her voice was soft, a clicking whisper. Secretly, through channels even the hive does not know about. What did they want? Brenthik asked. To talk, only to talk. They said they do not want war. Salix leaned forward. Did you believe them? Chithra considered the question. I did. Their messenger was calm, patient. She spoke of building a future, not of revenge. She said humanity had learned many lessons in their years of hiding. One of those lessons was that anger is a fire that burns the one who holds it. Pretty words, Brenthik said. But they have a fleet. A powerful one, from what our sensors can tell. Why show restraint when they could simply attack? Because they are smarter than we thought. Salix stood and walked to the window. Outside, stars glittered in the endless dark. Think about it. They hid for 300 years. They built ships more advanced than anything we have. They chose to reveal themselves now, when they are strong enough that we cannot simply destroy them again. And their first act was not an attack. It was a message. He turned back to face the others. They are playing a long game. They want to join the Concord, not destroy it. They want to be accepted as equals. And they are willing to wait for that acceptance, even if it takes another 300 years. The Vathrani High Command will never accept them, Brenthik said. Then the Vathrani High Command will fall. Salix's voice was hard. I have seen their fleet, Brenthik. Not all of it. They only showed me a small part. But that small part was enough. Their technology is beyond ours. Their ships are faster, stronger, better armored. If it comes to war, the Vathrani will lose. How can you know this? Because I was an engineer before I was a soldier. I understand what I saw. Their power systems alone are generations ahead of ours. Their weapons make our best look like toys. He paused. And yet they did not attack. They broadcast a message and then waited. That is not the behavior of a species that wants war. That is the behavior of a species that wants peace, but is ready for war if peace is refused. Chithra clicked thoughtfully. So, what do? Salix returned to his seat. We prepare. The High Command will not listen to reason. They will send a fleet. They will try to destroy the humans again. And they will fail. When that happens, the Concord will need leaders who can build something new. Leaders who understand that humanity is not our enemy. You want us to betray our own people? Brenthic's voice was careful. I want us to save our people. The Vethrani committed a great crime 300 years ago. Now the survivors of that crime have returned, stronger than ever. We can repeat the mistakes of the past and be destroyed. Or we can choose a different path. The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Brenthic nodded slowly. I will speak to my people. The Korath have no love for the Vethrani. Many of us have always believed the burning of Earth was wrong. Perhaps it is time to say so openly. And I will speak to those in the hive who can think for themselves, Chithra said. There are more of us than you might expect. We will be ready when the time comes. Salix felt something he had not felt in a very long time, hope. Then we are agreed. When the High Command sends their fleet, we will be ready to pick up the pieces. And we will build a new Concord. One that includes humanity. He looked out the window again. Somewhere out there, in the darkness between stars, human ships were waiting, watching, preparing. They had survived the worst thing the galaxy could do to them. They had hidden and grown strong in secret. And now they were ready to step into the light. Salix thought about the young human woman who had contacted him. She had introduced herself as Lieutenant Kim Soin. She was young, probably not even 30 years old. But she had spoken with a quiet confidence that reminded him of the old admirals he had served under in his youth. We do not blame you, she had said. You were not the one who gave the order. You tried to stop it, and you were punished. We know this. How can you know? He had asked. Because we watched. For 300 years, we watched everything. We know who our enemies are. And we know who our friends might be. Now, sitting in this small room with two aliens who had agreed to help humanity, Salix understood what she meant. Humanity had not wasted their time in hiding. They had learned. They had planned. They had built networks of contacts and allies across the galaxy, waiting for the right moment. This was that moment. The storm was gathering. The Vethrani fleet would come. Blood would be spilled. Mistakes would be made. But in the end, Salix believed something new would emerge from the chaos. Something better. He only hoped he would live long enough to see it. The Vethrani fleet jumped into the Tessara system with 800 warships. Admiral Una commanded from her flagship, the Eternal Dominion. She stood on the bridge, watching the stars ripple as her ships emerged from faster-than-light travel. Around her, officers shouted orders and coordinates. The fleet spread out into attack formation, weapons charging, shields activating. This was the moment she had been preparing for since the human broadcast. The High Command had given her clear orders: destroy the human fleet. Every ship. Every last one. Leave no survivors. Show the galaxy that the Vethrani did not make mistakes. Show them that humanity should have stayed dead. Una told herself this was necessary. This was justice. This was the right thing to do. She did not believe it, but she followed orders. She always had. Admiral. Her sensor officer looked up from his console, his scales pale with confusion. I have contact with the human fleet. 60 ships, holding position near Tessara Station. Only 60? Una felt a flicker of doubt. 800 against 60. The odds should be impossible. Why would the humans agree to fight such a battle? Yes, Admiral. They are not moving. They appear to be waiting. Waiting. The word echoed in Una's mind. Everything the humans had done suggested patience, planning. They did not act without purpose. If they were waiting, there was a reason. But orders were orders. All ships, prepare to engage. Target the largest human vessels first. Fire on my command. The fleet moved forward. 800 warships, the pride of the Vethrani Empire, advancing towards 60 human ships that hung motionless in space. On the bridge of the homecoming, Admiral Park Do-hyun watched the Vethrani approach. "They are entering weapon range," Lieutenant Commander Yoonji reported. Her voice was steady, but her hands were tight on her console. 60 seconds until they can fire. "Shields to maximum," Do-hyun ordered. "All ships, hold position. Do not fire until I give the command." Captain Hyeri stepped up beside him. "Admiral, they outnumber us more than 13 to 1. I am aware. If we fire first, we could cripple their forward elements before they can respond. Give ourselves better odds." Do-hyun shook his head. "We do not fire first. Not today. Not ever." He looked at her with calm eyes. "If this is the day humanity dies, we die with clean hands. But I do not think this is that day." The Vethrani fleet opened fire. Plasma lances streaked across the void, bright lines of green and blue. Kinetic accelerators hurled metal projectiles at incredible speeds. Antimatter torpedoes spiraled toward their targets, each one carrying enough destructive power to crack a small moon. The wall of fire hit the human fleet, and nothing happened. On the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Yuna stared at her screens in disbelief. Every shot had hit. Every weapon had found its target. But the human ships were still there, undamaged. "Report," she demanded. "What happened to our attack?" Her weapons officer's claws trembled on his console. "Admiral, their shields. I do not understand the readings. They are not deflecting our fire. They are not dispersing it. They are absorbing it. The energy simply disappears. That is impossible." "I am reporting what I see, Admiral." On the homecoming, Chief Engineer Minho grinned at his displays. 3 centuries of secret research had led to this moment. The absorption shields had worked perfectly, drinking in the Vethrani attack like water into sand. "Shields at 98%, he reported. "Minimal power drain. We can take hits like that all day." Admiral Do-hyun nodded. "Now we respond. All ships, target Vethrani engines and weapon systems only. I repeat, engines and weapons only. No killing shots. Disable and move on." The human fleet fired. Their weapons were nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Beams of focused energy that cut through Vethrani shields like they were made of paper. Precision strikes that hit exactly where they were aimed, severing power conduits and destroying weapon systems without touching crew quarters or life support. In 30 seconds, 50 Vethrani ships lost the ability to fight. In 60 seconds, 100 more joined them. The Eternal Dominion shuddered as a human beam sliced through her 4 weapons array. Consoles exploded. Officers screamed. The lights flickered and went red. "Return fire," Yuna shouted. "All ships, concentrate fire on their flagship." The surviving Vethrani ships poured everything they had at the homecoming. For a moment, the human flagship disappeared behind a wall of fire and light. Every gun, every missile, every weapon in the Vethrani arsenal was focused on that single ship. When the fire cleared, the homecoming was untouched, and it was still firing. Admiral Yuna watched her fleet fall apart. Ships drifted without power. Others tried to retreat, but found their engines destroyed. The human weapons were impossibly precise, hitting exactly what they aimed at and nothing else. They were not trying to kill. They were trying to disable, to stop the battle without a massacre. Even now, even in the middle of a fight for survival, the humans were choosing mercy. "Admiral," her communications officer spoke urgently. "The human flagship is hailing us." Yuna hesitated. The High Command would want her to refuse. To fight to the last ship, the last breath. But looking at her screens, she saw the truth clearly. This battle was already over. The only question was how many Vethrani would die before the end. Put them through. Admiral Park Dohin's face appeared on her screen. He looked calm, almost sad. "Admiral Yuna," he said, "your fleet cannot win this battle. You know this. Your weapons cannot hurt us, and our weapons have already disabled more than half your ships." "Then finish it," Yuna said bitterly. "Destroy us as we destroyed Earth. Claim your revenge." Do-hyun shook his head slowly. "We did not return for revenge. We returned because we will not let the past define us. 300 years ago, your people committed a terrible crime. Today, you can begin to make it right. Stand down. Accept our offer of mercy." "Mercy?" Yuna almost laughed. "Why would you show us mercy?" "Because someone has to be the first to stop the cycle. Someone has to choose something other than blood and fire. Today, we make that choice." He paused. "I am told you were there, Admiral. On the day Earth burned. You saw it happen." Yuna felt cold. "Yes, I was there." "Then you know what we lost. You know the weight of what your people did. We carry that weight every day. But we will not pass it on to you. We will not become what you feared us to be." On the screens, Yuna could see human shuttles launching from the Homecoming and other human ships. They were moving toward the disabled Vethrani vessels. For a moment, she thought they were going to board and attack. Then she saw them dock with the crippled ships. Saw human medics carrying Vethrani wounded to safety. Saw human engineers helping to restore life support to vessels that had lost power. They were rescuing her people. The same people who had burned their world. The same people who had killed their families. The same people who had come today to finish the genocide they started 300 years ago. And the humans were saving them. Yuna felt something break inside her. Not anger, not fear. Something else. Something she had carried for 3 centuries without knowing it. Shame. "Stand down," she said quietly. Her voice was rough. "All ships, stand down. This battle is over." On the Homecoming, Admiral Do-hyun closed the channel and turned to his bridge crew. They were staring at him with wide eyes, hardly believing what had just happened. "Today we won a battle," he said. "But not with our weapons. Not with our shields. We won by being something they never expected. Something they forgot humans could be." He looked at each of them in turn. "Remember this day. Tell your children about it. Tell them that we had the power to destroy our enemies, and we chose not to." Captain Hyeri stepped forward. "Admiral, the Vethrani fleet has surrendered. What are your orders?" "Continue rescue operations. Treat every Vethrani wounded as we would treat our own. And prepare a diplomatic message for the Galactic Concord." He paused, allowing himself a small smile. "Tell them humanity is ready to talk." The Galactic Concord met for the first time since the Battle of Tessara. The Great Assembly Hall on Tessara Station was silent as delegates took their seats. Every species was represented. Every eye was fixed on the central podium, where the most important announcement in 3 centuries would be made. The Vethrani High Command had fallen. News of the battle had spread across the galaxy like fire. Recordings showed Vethrani weapons doing nothing to human shields. They showed human strikes disabling ships with impossible precision. But most importantly, they showed human medics carrying wounded Vethrani soldiers to safety. They showed human engineers working to save lives on enemy ships. The contrast was too stark to ignore. For 300 years, the Vethrani had told the galaxy that humans were monsters. Dangerous creatures who would destroy everything if given the chance. That was why Earth had to burn. That was why 7 billion people had to die. Now the galaxy saw the truth. The monsters had shown more mercy in battle than the Vethrani had shown in 3 centuries of rule. The species that was supposed to be savage and bloodthirsty had chosen to save their enemies instead of killing them. The High Command tried to maintain control. They called the battle a temporary setback. They ordered new ships to be built, new weapons to be designed. But it was too late. Too many Vethrani had seen what happened. Too many officers had watched humans risk their lives to save Vethrani wounded. Too many soldiers had woken up in human medical bays, treated with kindness and respect. The revolution was swift and almost bloodless. The High Command was arrested by their own officers. The new Vethrani government immediately requested peace talks with humanity. Now Admiral Una stood before the Galactic Concord. She was no longer wearing her military uniform. She had resigned her commission after the battle, unable to serve a government that had ordered her to commit another genocide. Instead, she wore simple civilian clothes. Her gray scales seemed even more faded than before, but her eyes were clear. "I was there when Earth burned," she said. Her voice echoed through the silent hall. "I was a young officer, barely old enough to fight. I watched from the observation deck of my ship as we destroyed a world, killed 7 billion people, ended a civilization." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "For 300 years I told myself it was necessary. I told myself we had no choice. I told myself the humans were too dangerous to live." She shook her head slowly. "I was wrong. We were all wrong." She looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of delegates from every species. The humans could have destroyed us at Dasara. They had the power. They had every right. We came to finish what we started 3 centuries ago. We came to kill the survivors of our crime. And what did they do? They saved our lives. They treated our wounded. They showed us more kindness than we ever showed them. Her voice grew stronger. "I do not ask for forgiveness. What we did cannot be forgiven. But I ask that we learn from this. I ask that we build a new Concord, one that includes humanity, one that never again allows such a crime to happen." She stepped back from the podium. The doors at the far end of the hall opened. Fleet Admiral Park Dalhun walked in, followed by a small group of human representatives, scientists, diplomats, artists, historians. Each one carried themselves with quiet dignity. Among them was Taiwu, the young historian. He walked with a small device in his hands, ready to record every moment of this historic day. Do-hyun reached the podium and stood where Una had stood moments before. He looked out at the assembly, his face calm and serious. 300 years ago, the Vethrani Empire decided that humanity was too dangerous to exist. They burned our world. They killed our people. They believed they had ended us forever. He let the words hang in the air. They were wrong. Not because we fought back. Not because we built weapons and ships and hid in the darkness. They were wrong because they did not understand what humanity really is. He gestured to the humans behind him. We are survivors. When everything was taken from us, we survived. We are builders. When we had nothing, we built a new home among the stars. We are dreamers. When the galaxy closed its doors to us, we dreamed of the day they would open again. He paused. And we are forgivers. When we had the power to take revenge, we chose mercy instead. He activated Taiwu's device. The hall filled with holographic images. Earth as it once was, spinning slowly in the void. Blue oceans, green forests, white clouds, cities glittering with light at night. This is what we lost, Do-hyun said softly. A beautiful world, a rich history, billions of lives. We carry this loss with us every day. Every human child grows up knowing what was taken from us. The images faded. But we did not come here to talk about the past. We came here to talk about the future. He extended his hand, palm open in the ancient human gesture of peace. We do not ask the Concord to apologize for what happened. We do not ask for payment or punishment. We ask only for a place among you, a chance to build something new, a future where no species ever faces what we faced. Silence filled the hall. Every delegate seemed to be holding their breath. Then Brenthak, the Korath representative, rose from his seat. His massive form moved slowly across the floor toward Do-Yun. His stone-like face showed no expression. He reached the podium and extended one of his 4 hands. His huge grip engulfed Do-Hyun's human hand completely. "The Korath welcome humanity to the Galactic Concord," he said. His deep voice rumbled through the hall. "Let us build something better together." One by one, other representatives rose. Chithra, the Marathi queen, fluttered down from her seat. Her delicate wings caught the light as she approached. "The Marathi welcome humanity. Your strength is matched only by your wisdom." The Tesseron delegation came next. Then the representatives of a dozen other species. Each one offered words of welcome. Each one reached out to shake Do-Hyun's hand. Salix came last. The scarred Vethrani, who had questioned the burning of Earth 3 centuries ago. He walked slowly, his old legs unsteady, but his eyes were bright. "I have waited 300 years for this day," he said. "I was punished for asking if we were doing the right thing. Now I know the answer." He took Do-Hyun's hand. "Welcome home, Admiral. Welcome home." Do-Hyun felt something tight in his chest loosen. All the years of hiding, all the generations of waiting, all the carefully laid plans and quietly spoken hopes. It had all led to this moment. He thought of his father, who had died believing he would never see this day. He thought of his grandfather and his great-grandfather, and all the ancestors who had fled the burning earth with nothing but hope and determination. They had made it. Against all odds, against all expectations, they had made it. He looked up at the holographic displays, now showing something new. Human ships and alien ships flying together. The flags of humanity and the Concord side by side. A new chapter was beginning. Through the great windows of the assembly hall, the stars sparkled in the endless darkness. Those same stars had watched Earth burn 300 years ago. Now they watched something different, something better. Humanity had returned, and this time, they were not alone. Far away, on a human ship still patrolling the edge of Concord space, a young pilot named Hemin looked up from her console. She had been born on that ship, had never known any world but the fleet. But she had grown up on stories of blue skies and green trees, of a planet that lived in the hearts of all her people. She listened to the broadcast from Tessara Station, heard the cheers and the speeches, heard her species welcomed back into the family of intelligent beings. And she smiled. Somewhere, her ancestors were smiling too. The long night was over. A new dawn had begun.